My name is רינה Aenglard. It isn't really Rína. My name is Iesha Irene, but I was called Irene. I would have been called Iesha. I would not have minded, but some of the family called Jentishmenta, and it poisoned the name for me, which was a shame. When I grew older, I rather liked. I would have liked it, but I couldn't change it. And Irene, I was called in school, but then the people called me Rini. And my Latin teacher said, let us give it the proper pronunciation, Irene. Well, with this one thing and another, when I came to Israel, when I was 20 years old, Rini and Rína were so close. And I got my first job because he said to me, what is your name? I said, Rína Aenglard. So he said, no, Rína Newman, I think I was still there. Yes, I was. So he said, it's a very sympathetic name because I have a daughter called Rína. And we got on extremely well.
So you've been Rína ever since you came to Israel?
All the time.
Yes. And so let's go back to you being a little girl in your house in Stamford Hill. Tell us a little bit about your
childhood.
Your early childhood memories.
Well, I was the third child. There was a boy, my brother, who was too superior for me. He was all of 3 years older than me, and I was Titch. I was the little one, and Titch didn't have much of a place anywhere. And
Titch was your nickname?
It was an acquired, it was a thrown one, it wasn't acquired. And my sister, the middle one, who was very resentful of the fact that she was the middle one. She wasn't the oldest and she wasn't the youngest. And my mother, Shalom, said to her, the sweetest part of a sandwich comes in between. But she didn't accept that, but I thought it was very nice. I wanted to be the middle one. Anyway, it didn't matter. I got the kicks and the punches and whatever it was to put me down, because I almost had all the answers. And it was not very good. So my mother said, darling, keep quiet a little bit. So I kept quiet as much as I could, not very much. But I had a very clear memory of being at the seaside in my pram with a big straw hat over my face, a big smile, and it was so nice to be able to smile at people. I like to smile. And I have a very fond memory of that. And I must have been about 3 or 4 years old, not older. I had a very clear memory of everything that happened to me.
Tell us about your school, your primary school.
I'll tell you. So before I was 5, I was taken along to a field, I can't remember the name of the school. And here is a new little girl coming into the class. And I was just before 5. And one of the first things that we had to learn was the ABC. And I humped it. I took it the first time I heard it. And I went home that night and with my homework and said my ABC. And the next day, teacher said, who knows the ABC? And my hand shot up. And the first time I got the L and the K in the wrong positions. So she said, try again. I tried again, and I got it. I don't know what happened to the other children, but I was told to go out. The headmistress was there. She took me to her office. I was a bit scared, frightened. What was I going to her office for? Because I got the L and the K in the wrong position. And no, I got a sweet for this one side of my cheek and a sweet for that side. And I went back to my classroom with my sweets in my mouth, and somebody put up his hand and said, please, teacher, we're not allowed to eat sweets in school. So she said, well, we'll let her finish it, shall we? Anyway, I was always getting into trouble by children if I did something and we're not allowed to do it, and I had done it. And I understand that it does happen quite a lot, that if someone does things and they're found out. I enjoyed when I was a little bit older, and there was a girl who always played whoopee in a classroom. And I would say, shut up, I want to learn. I didn't want to play whoopee, I wanted to learn. Anyway, it was delightful. What else can I tell you about?
Do you remember if there were other Jewish children in the class besides you?
I do not know. I didn't know what Jew and non-Jew was. I really didn't know what it was all about. And I can tell you a little bit later, my mother, Overshalom, was in hospital. And then I was in hospital. I think I was pining for her, quite honestly. I didn't like where I was. I was with my grandparents and all the aunts, and one or two were delightful, and one was a tiger. And I was in hospital. I was 5 years old, and I went up to the nurse and said, please, can I feed the babies? And she gave me the bottles to feed the babies. And she saw I was quite good, so I didn't overdo it. And I was the nurse for the babies. It was gorgeous.
That was comforting to you.
Pardon?
That was comforting to you.
It was wonderful. Yeah. I love dolls and I love babies. I didn't have dolls, so I had babies.
And tell us a little bit about your mum and your dad. Let's start with your dad, who you said was a borough councillor.
Yes.
What can you remember of him?
He was always so busy. And if I made a noise, it got in the way. He was an only child. He was a third child. The first two died. So he was called Chaim. But Chaim was, I would say, abjectly spoiled. Being the only child. And he expected everything to be done for him. You know? Which put us out of the place, because we thought things had to be done for us. No, I didn't. I was put in my place very quickly by my sister and my brother. My brother not so much, because he was superior to this. Later on we became quite good friends, but at that stage I got in the way. I got in the way of everybody.
And what do you remember? You had some lovely memories about your mum. What can you remember about her?
She was beautiful. She was lovely to look at. I remember her dressing up in a beautiful, I don't know what the dress was, but she had a white coatee on, like a fur coat. I don't think it was. and they were going to a banquet for charity, and they were sitting at the table of the late Prince of Wales. You know, it was the Lord Melchett Fund, and my parents had done a lot of work for it. And I have this lovely memory of my mother, beautifully dressed and looking lovely. And I thought, oh, when I'm bigger, I'll also be like this. She was also a champion swimmer. She was had a medal for it was called Stepney, now it's called Tower Hamlets, for this area. And Rebecca Greenstein had a big medal. So her sister used to go around with a big medal and say she was Rebecca.
Did you ever see your mother swim?
Oh yes, she took us every Sunday to swimming in the local park. There was a swimming pool, and she used to swim with me on her back. She was a very strong, good swimmer, but she was very good at diving. And she used to go to a high board and dive into the water. She was terrific. She was a lovely person. We went for long walks together when I was a bit bigger. We would walk, do you know London? We were living in Maida. We used to walk to the Serpentine, to Hyde Park, listen to the speakers, if they were worth listening to, and walk back. No, I wasn't more than 11, 12 when I did that. But she was excellent at all this. Or else we would go from Maida Vale to Regent's Park to see the beautiful tulips. You know, they used to have a display of tulips there. So, and she took an infinite delight in my successes. You know, I didn't have to show her anything. And in my class, yes, she taught me poetry. And she was a very good actress. She was Rosalind in As You Like It. And she taught me how to express myself. I was a very willing student. I only wanted to learn. And she was a very good teacher. So we got on extremely well.
So you would have been, you were born 1928, and the war was 1939, so you would have been around 11 when the war broke out. How did the war affect your life as a young person?
Well, by the time in 1939, before that, we were living in the East End, in Whitechapel, actually, and I went to a Jewish school, the Stepney Jewish Girls' School, and there again, the headmistress, she was probably, I never had her, a very good teacher, but if you didn't do what she wanted, you got the whips, not the verbal whipstick. Once I was coming out of the hall and the girl behind me was speaking, and she pulled me out of the line, making a mark on my arm, and you don't talk. I didn't say I wasn't talking, because I could easily have been talking. And so the following day, my mother wrote a letter to her and said, you know, do you usually mark your children? She said, when I brought this letter, which terrified me to do, I took it to her. You can show me the arm and I do the same on the other arm. You know, I was petrified of that woman. And a little bit later, we were evacuated.
Do you remember what year that was when you were evacuated?
1939.
Right away?
Immediately. Immediately. They put us, and the point was, those who were the poor children were put near the gasworks, and those who were the favourite children, they went up in Windsor. It was a very nice area to be in Windsor Borough Council. It was terrific.
The whole school moved to Windsor?
Yes, the boys were one section and the girls. And if you were the teacher's favourite, well, you had a chance of a good billet. Well, we were with very poor people. There was one case of an illegitimate baby in the street, and there was another. Oh, we felt so sorry. But my lady, where I was staying, Mrs. Smith, I think she was, her husband was a gasworks worker, and evidently he had a fiery temper, but he didn't show it to us. My sister and I were in the same billet, and if I took up too much of the bed, then I got a kick. I really dreaded it, but I took it with a big pinch of salt.
How long did you live in Windsor as an evacuee?
How long? Until 43.
So that was a big chunk.
Not at the same place.
Ah, okay.
Oh no, oh no.
So tell us.
We went, my sister went to High Wycombe because it was a technical school, and I went to the grammar school. And it was not Windsor Grammar School, it was Clapham County. It was evacuated to Windsor. And there I had a headmistress who was delighted to have Jewish children. And she found me a very inquisitive mind. I was the recommendation from one school to the other. An enthusiastic hard worker. And that is the sort of characteristic that I've done all my life, in all my work. Yes, my father was in the army, and you know which part of the army he was in? The Royal Army Pay Corps. He was a clerk, he was an accountant, and so he was in the Pay Corps, and how did he not go abroad? Because he was down for overseas duty. He didn't really want to do it. So they had to wait in a queue to be photographed, or to have a film, or to be examined. And he was getting hungry, so he had a piece of chocolate. So it showed up as an ulcer. Oh,
you were living in Windsor.
I can tell you, home is a very short period for me. Very short period. I can remember slightly my childhood, my real childhood, and then not, and then a little bit in Maidvale, and then what happened after that? Then we were evacuated.
Did you do O-levels? Was it called
I did A-levels.
A-levels, wow.
And I went to university.
Do you remember what subjects you picked for A-levels?
Yes, history, French, and English, I think. I was very good at history. I was not bad at French. And in English I got by.
But before your A-levels, you had mentioned that your mother passed away when you were 16. Is that right? So that would have been before your A-levels.
Oh yes.
So that would have had a
that was in the middle of my O-levels, of my. I remembered making. You had to do a recipe or something, and it was all about my mother making a cake. It was horrible. I was crying like anything. It was hard. It was very hard. And then that was before the Levaya. And it was very sudden. She had, pneumonia. And then you didn't have penicillin. And at the same time, Churchill was being given penicillin for pneumonia. And they couldn't prescribe it to my mother.
I mean, ordinary people didn't have access to antibiotics.
Between Friday and Sunday, she was gone. And
how old was she when she passed away? Do you know?
49.
And how did you manage after that? I mean, you had 2 more years of school to finish.
Yes. My sister was not very good in the kitchen. And she was working. So, Madam, I did everything. And I ran out in lunchtime to do shopping, and then tried to cook something before my brother and sister came back. And I wasn't all that successful. So my brother put a notice in the Jewish Chronicle. 3 youths lost mother require home help. And one darling woman came who had lost her family in Poland. She used to come all the way from the East End and bring loads of shopping and say, no, you don't have to pay me, only for the food.
So what can you tell us about your 2 years in Israel? I mean, you're talking about a completely different Israel than the one we have now. So what are some of your best memories from that time?
My best memories.
I mean, I presume there wasn't much, that things were hard in Israel, like that there wasn't a lot of food or goods, or
Nothing.
Life was not exactly luxurious.
Darling, I worked in an office. The office had 2 long trestle tables. A friend of mine came to work in the same office, and when she went back to Belgium, I was left in this room by myself. I had been in a Beit Chalutzot for a year. After a year, you had to leave. And so I said to Judge Frumkin, could I live in the office. So they wrote it in the minutes of the meeting. The office will be now passed over to Rina Newman, and fine.
Difficult for you to have a job, to have income, because you're supporting yourself.
I was
paying your own rent.
I was completely self-supporting, to the penny.
So very min hashamayim then that you had this
Everything.
job.
Everything was min hashamayim. So I was there for 2 weeks, and in came Levi Gertner to see Mr. Kimchi. He said, "What have you got her for? She's too good for you." So that was my next call, was to go to Levi Gertner. And I got a job in the Hebrew department of the Jewish Agency. and making seminars.
So tell us how you met Mayor Englert.
Well, I'd been at a Chug Ivri, several people in a group.
Explain what it was. What was Chug Ivri?
People who wanted to speak Hebrew. And we were, it had been some time already since I had left Israel. I hadn't had any practice, and my teacher wasn't anywhere near me. And so I had to resuscitate what I didn't know. And
was it once a week?
Once a week. And surprisingly, the mayor came to that group. And he noticed me, which I didn't pay attention to anybody. And after perhaps 2 or 3 times, he says, perhaps we could go out. I said, yes, I didn't know who he was, what he was, how he was. Then he disappeared. And I had his card. He gave me his card. Aenglard, barrister at law.
He was already a barrister when
Oh yes. And I thought, interesting. But, nothing more. I didn't know who he was or what. And I didn't hear anything. I looked at the card. Shall I throw it away? No, I won't throw it away, not yet. And then I went to a lecture by the Honourable Ewan Montague. Have you heard of him?
Jewish member of cabinet.
Yes, right. And he wrote the story, The Man Who Never Was. In the cabinet, he suggested before D-Day, because the Germans were sniffing around and believing that we were going to invade in Normandy. No. So they dressed up someone in highfalutin, a dead airman, in highfalutin clothes, lieutenant colonel or whatever it was, with secret things in his pocket, and shot him down in the Bay of Biscay. And that was the man who never was. And he was found by the Germans. So Rommel rushed his forces from the north to Italy. And then D-Day took place. And we were listening to this.
So the idea was to fool the Germans about where they should be waiting for the invasion.
Of course,
so it was
of course.
A diversionary tactic.
Of course.
So that the Germans wouldn't know that we were coming to Normandy.
Right.
It's an amazing story.
What?
It's an amazing story.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And I was listening glue-eyed. Then afterwards, who was there? Mayor. And then we started going out. He had not been in touch because there was there's a Shlomo Michael Anger. I have one. I just come home from hospital with him in my arms. And Mayor's cousin, Shlomo Michael Anger, was doing relief work in the camps, in the displacement camps. And this uncle of Mayor's said, when he heard Englard, said, "Do you know Max Englard?" He said, "Yes, he's my cousin. Would you tell him, please, that his uncle, Shlomo, is here in the camp?" So Mayor had gone to Europe and found his uncle, which was very touching. And he put him in a flat with a nurse and came back, and then he saw me. And unfortunately, 3 weeks later, his uncle died. So he arranged for the Kavura in Israel. And that's why Meir hadn't been in touch. So how I made an impression on him, I have no idea. You know, because we were in a group.
What about the impression he made on you? Because you said that when you met this American shidduch that your brother had set you up with, or you weren't the least bit interested, like, let me out of the car.
Yes.
So here, obviously, with this person, there was something that drew your interest. So what was it about him that made you?
Truth. MS. There was no flamboyancy about him. We were both poor guys, both of us. We were both alone. And it was touching. You know, immediately there was sympathy and empathy. He didn't know anything about me. He knew me only in a group. And it would be interesting to have asked Meir what he saw in me. It was incredible, because when it went on. This was about October that we went to this lecture. So then he was asking me to go out. We went out a couple of times on a Sunday evening, once a week. And then he asked me to go. I said, I can't, because I'm helping to run a seminar for Levi Gertner. We're having one, I can't remember where it was. I'd be busy. I can't do it. So he said, where is the seminar? When is it? Can you put my name down? So he came.
He was very keen.
and then he came to the seminar, and I said, just a minute, must get my fur coat. It was my cardigan. It was a bit chilly. So he said, one day you'll have one. I thought,
oh, you were joking, like you said, when I...
Oh, yes, of course.
And he said, one day you'll have one?
Yeah. So, I never got it, but never mind. I don't like fur coats, not anymore. So,
did Meir talk to you about what he had been through in the war?
Oh, later on, where was he from, and how was he, and what was he doing, and where was he doing it? You know, these are graduate questions. You know, you can't plonk it immediately. It was a friendly. We went perhaps to a film or something like this, and it was friendly. It was nice. He would, wouldn't see me home. He'd put me on the train or whatever it was. Where was I living then? Just a moment. Whew, I can't think of my whereabouts. No, I was still in North London. I was with a lovely lady, Regina Chrysler, who anyway, we went there, and then he said, oh yes, he came there once, and Regina approved of him. She was very sweet, and in fact, well, it went on, and he took me to see a house. He said, Rina, you look at the kitchen, you know more about kitchens. I thought I know nothing. Okay, so I pretended. And and it came to the Valentine's Day. And we had been seeing about 3 houses. And I was, yes.
So you were engaged?
No.
Oh, you weren't engaged?
No, it's Valentine's Day.
Oh, I see, okay.
So I understood that Valentine's Day, a woman is allowed to propose. Ah, but I didn't. I just said to him, we were in Russell Gardens, Russell Square, you know, by Woburn House. We were walking, so I said, Mayor, if you are intending anything, aren't you supposed to say something? He always says I proposed. I didn't propose. Aren't you supposed to say something? And I felt so embarrassed. He got down on his knees and asked me. You see, he was so shy, and I was so reserved. I didn't dare, you know. I mean, the other one with the swanky car, he wanted the ring already.
So he did ask you that day?
Who?
He did, Mayor.
Oh yes, oh yes. And he always says that I proposed. Not to me. But anyway, and so we kept it very secret, because, so I said to him, frankly, I said, I burst out crying. He said, why are you crying? I said, I have no money. And here a young barrister needs money. So he said, Rina, you do the wedding and I'll do everything else. But I did a lot. I mean, I was working all the way through, but...
When did you get married?
We got married after Tishbath.
What year was that?
58. No, not 58. Yes, it was. 58.
58.
Yeah.
So you finally had your own home after all this time.
Oh, it was wonderful. Where Mayor was making Kiddush. And, you know, it was so different. And I could invite people. I invited everyone who didn't have a place. We had open house. And he took me to see a 10-roomed house. And I said, Mayor, I was content with 2 rooms, not 10 rooms. I said, what would we do? He said, we're going to let it. We let the whole house and kept 2 rooms for ourselves. And the people were all goyim, and they loved it. Show us your prayer book. Show us, you bring up your children so nicely. You do this. They were so...
So in those 2 rooms, first of all, you made everybody welcome. to your house, because you yourself had, you know, had been so alone, and so you made it. And second of all, so you began your family in those 2 rooms with the first
Immediately.
couple of children born.
Immediately. It was incredible. I said HaKadosh Baruch Hu was behind us the whole way. We couldn't have done it. We didn't have anything, but Meir was so trustworthy. People knew his word was his bond. And a banker gave us the money for the mortgage, which we gave back to him. It was fantastic.
So, do you have photos from the wedding?
I had, but my children have all taken them.
Right. So, I mean, trying to imagine your wedding, you know, with everything you've described to me so far, it seems to me that there would have been something very poignant and bittersweet, in that neither of you had parents then.
Right, exactly. Well, for Meir, there was a Mr. and Mrs. Frank who stepped in to be his interferers. For me, it was my sister and her husband. We weren't on the best of relationship, but I couldn't put anyone else there. So that it wasn't, we accepted it. You see, I was 29, my husband was 36, and we knew what it was, that we were alone. We were very aware of it. And he said to me, Rina, we've not got anyone else. And it was.
Everything you had, you built.
It was wonderful. The first Friday night, we were in our the house where I was willing for a 2-roomed flat, like everyone else. And immediately, I had Aryeh, my first one, Leon. And
what year was that? What year was he born?
49. 50.
59. Yeah.
59. When was it? 208. No, when was it?
I think it would have been 60 because he was in my class and I was.
No, it was in. It
maybe
was
he was September, October 59.
October. One day before my birthday. He was my birthday present, and we had one, and Naomi was my husband's birthday present. Anyway, and so he was born, and I came home, mind you, there, when he was born, they kept you a week in hospital. So it was a time to breathe again, and I was so grateful. And he was an easy baby, very easy. But then I was lonely. Then I had no one to turn to.
He was named Aryeh after who?
Aryeh is after my husband's father.
How soon did the next one come along?
Then we had a year, 15 months later, we had Michael and Shlomo Michael. Shlomo Meir had an uncle in the camps, in the displacement camp. He lost his wife and 2 daughters. And this uncle, Shlomo, heard someone being called Aenglard. He said, "Do you know Max Aenglard?" He said, "He's my cousin." So he said, would you tell him his uncle is in this camp? So Maya, this was before we were together, is here. So Maya went straight to the camp, took him out and put him in a flat with a nurse, and came back, and then he invited me out. And but 3 weeks later he was nifter. So his uncle was, Michael was called Shlomo Michael, Shlomo after the uncle, and Michael, I said, me who is like his Hashem, that he gives me 2 sons. I was so grateful.
So they were 15 months apart?
Yes, and Michael was a very difficult one. And it made no difference. I was determined. I had no one to do anything. And then, of course, Rebecca was on the way. That was also 15 months.
And at this point, are you still downstairs, or did you?
Yeah. Oh no, we hadn't gone upstairs. Not until we had 4 children. No. We needed it to pay the mortgage.
And this is before disposable nappies?
Of course. I remember having 3 babies in nappies for 3 days of Yom Tov.
Today, we can't imagine those things today. You know?
You just had to soak them and wash them, boil them, if you could. It was incredible. And on one occasion, when Leon was a little boy and he knew I didn't have help, I did have help. I got somebody, an au pair, at one point, because he was just to get a bit over me. But I didn't complain. I explain, I don't complain. And because I was so grateful for every single thing. And when Rebecca was born, she had 4 names. Now, why 4 names? She had our 2 mothers. So she says...
Who was Rebecca? Who was Rivka?
Rebecca was, my mother was Bracha. And people used to call her Becky. And she didn't like it. So she thought that Rebecca was a nice... So she adopted the name. So it's really not anybody's name, except that it's everybody. And what's
Rebecca's 4 names?
Rebecca, Sophie, Bracha, Zelda. Bracha was my mother. Zelda was Maya's mother. So
then you had 3 children under the age of 3.
I had 5 under the age of 5. But it was gorgeous. It was, one helped the other.
What do you remember most about those early years, having all those little children? What do you remember when you look back? What do you see?
I tell you, Rebecca was a teacher from the age of 3. And we had a hall where all the rooms, there was a dining, not a dining room, it was my husband's study, and it was a sitting room. That was there. There was, our bedroom was there, but it became later the dining room. And then there was a children's room there. And what do I remember about it?
You were saying Rebecca was always a teacher. So
yes, in this hall, she would start singing and holding hands. It was gorgeous. And I took a picture of it somewhere. She was excellent.
So tell us who was born after Rebecca. We didn't get the names of who was
Oh,
born
Jonathan.
after Jonathan was next.
Jonathan came, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me another one, Jonathan. And Aaron, after my husband's grandfather. Aaron. And then came Naomi. How pleasant to have another daughter. So she was Naomi.
From Naim, that's so nice.
Yeah.
That's what you called her name.
Yes, and Naomi.
Yeah, I remember coming to play with either Rebecca or maybe even Aryeh, because we were at primary school together, and I remember Naomi as not much more than a baby, very blonde. I remember like blonde ringlets. She was quite blonde when she
was ginger.
Ginger.
She was. And I tell you, with Naomi, she had gorgeous hair. And I used to put it as a crown on her head. And it was lovely first thing in the morning, but when she came home from school, it was straggly. Mummy, I want it cut. I want it cut. And my husband he wouldn't let me cut my hair, even under the covering. And a whole week she was, I want it cut. All the other girls had shorter hair. She wanted hers cut. So I took her to the hairdresser, and he cut too much. And she came home, and she was afraid to show herself to her father. So she ran up to bed. As long as he was out on time to go to his shir.
Can you tell us a little bit about where his career was going at that? He was a barrister, wasn't he?
Yes.
So where was he working? What was he doing at that time?
He was in Lincoln's Inn, and he used to do a lot of titles, ancient titles, and how he ever deciphered them, I was incredulous. And this is a foreign language. He had gone in order, he didn't have an English accent. He had a slight, not bad German accent. And he went to a phonetic school. He was such a precision, you know, when he...
to speak the language more clearly, so that he would speak English more clearly.
Yes. No, he wanted... You see, he was in chambers. And chambers, they're all... they had the old school ties. And May had his Jewish school tie. And he was very conscious of it. I said, Mayor, now it's more rough. They have all, but then and he was very conscious that he was, one, a foreigner, and two, he didn't speak the King's English or Queen's English, and when he was sitting in his chambers, having his sandwiches, and everyone else had gone out to dinner, wherever it was. Oh, you've got your tea cozy on. You know.
It was a very posh, exclusive club. And it's somewhat amazing that a Frum Jew from Germany would even be sitting in chambers. I mean, it says something about his abilities and his professionalism.
Look, darling, what he achieved, all he was thinking of all the time was not himself. I was very undemanding. I came in with nothing. I worked very hard with him. I was going to work and I was doing whatever he wanted, taking this to that one and doing that there, and in between. And I never asked for anything, But what he achieved, you know, that all he was concerned about, רינה the children, רינה the children. And I never asked if I bought. I went to Camden Town, to the market, and I got some very good things there, all sorts of things. And when he would remark that something in Golders Green is expensive, I said, well, it's not Camden Town, you know. And just when I got permission for him to go, he was nifter.
So then Auntie Lottie was...
Well, she stayed where she was. But then I could take, and then of course she wasn't well. But so then I took her to Schonfeldsware, and they were very, they said no, they couldn't, they didn't have room. I said, but you've got to have room.
Did it work?
Of course. You see, I was a community care volunteer. I did it from the Masoret, and I got my diploma. So I was a social worker, and of course, you know, they said, well, we haven't got funding for him. I said, I'll get funding.
You knew the system?
I was determined. You've no idea what I have done. Oh, I had where there was somebody. I got her in, and we used to go and see her on Sundays. So I had a very good cleaner, and I said, come and help me, and I gave her most of the clothes. So you know,
she was like a mother figure to you. In many ways.
She was. She was a lovely person, a sweet person, and she loved me. Everything was for Rína, everything Rína. But I couldn't bear, even with all our guests, anyone who was alone, please join us. I couldn't bear, because Maya and I had both been alone. And my children, when they were alone, they knew exactly what I was talking about. They did know. They were very good.
And it's such an important part of the chinuch of the children.
Absolutely.
There were always guests around the table.
Yeah.
Because your children, I know from Rebecca,
I know.
they took that value on as well.
Of course. It was part of, we mustn't leave a person who unattended. It was, I mean, and Mayor, of course, was very much in agreement. In fact, the week of his patera, he said, Rína, I've invited so-and-so in my house. It was lovely, the house was lovely. People, you know, enjoyed it. And I was always making jokes. In fact, here, when I came here, they called me the smiling lady, because I said, I'm not going to inflict any of my pain on anyone else. So,
but it was hard to have people around the shoppers table once he was gone.
I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't in any way.
How long were you married, Rína? The two of you?
50 years.
You laugh, get more.
Okay, sure, we're ready to go. Rebecca told me, and I didn't know this, that you were in the 35s.
Oh,
you
yeah.
were very active in...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we want to hear all about that. How did that begin?
How did it begin? I was friendly, more than friendly, with Miriam Oppenheimer. And it was in her house at 3 the Ridgeway that we had a lot of meetings.
So explain to us, the meetings were for. Explain to us what the 35s was, because people watching this video don't know.
Oh, the 35s. There was a refusenik, a woman. She wasn't then a refusenik. She was a Russian, very educated. She was a librarian. And she had books on Hebrew. Hebrew was a forbidden language in Russia. And one night, there was knock, knock, knock in the middle of the night on her door. In comes the KGB. She has these Hebrew books. She goes to the Gulag. Raisa Palatnik. And she was 35 years old. And she was such an inoffensive person. She was taken to the Gulag for 2 years. And we, a group of us, were incredulous what was happening to this in Russia. And we started a petition. We were incredulous that a woman of 35, for no reason whatever, because she had a Hebrew book, she was being taken to the Gulag for hard labor for 2 years. We didn't know then that it was for 2 years, but whatever it was, she came out after 2 years and she was very submissive. People gave her hospitality and kindness, but she wasn't the same person anymore. And that's when we were, we heard and we publicized very much what was happening to the Jews in Russia. And I remember we went on a campaign from Mob Lodge with the Chief Rebbitzin, Lady Amelia Jacobowitz, and we walked down Bayswater Road to the Russian embassy and presented our petition, "Let my people go." It was incredible, and the police who accompanied us said they've never been in a demonstration so orderly. All these women walking down, they were just the police. It was a lesson for them as well. And we continually did it. Whenever there was a Russian demonstration or a Russian delegation coming to the Histadrut, what is the trade union, there were the 35s, "Let my people go." When there were musicians coming to the Royal Festival Hall, there were the 35s. We were everywhere.
How many women were in this group?
Well, we were a London group, but there was a demonstration in Manchester, there was a demonstration in Birmingham. They were everywhere. We were determined. We were going, when there were some people, Russians coming in boats for some sort of thing to show the British you know, that they were seamen or whatever it was, there we were. Wherever it was, my children didn't know, Mummy, when are you coming home tonight? In fact, one night, I didn't know, I still had my key on me, and I stayed outside in the car because I didn't know how to get in. I knocked on the door, and my daughter said, Mummy, I heard you knocking, but I was afraid to go to the door. So Mummy was left in the car. And then in the end, I had the key as well. My husband was so annoyed. How can you stay out all night? I said, May, it wasn't my fault. It was.
So it took many hours of your
Oh
life?
yes, it took my heart. And when I went to Russia as a refusenik. You had to go before you were 60, so I was determined to go before. I went, and I saw.
You went in order to visit refugees?
Yes, I went to. I had to go with somebody, so the only one I could see was a friend of Rebecca's. So I said, "Will you come with me?" She said, "Yes." So we both went. She spoke Yiddish, which was very good. I don't. And it was. We went to see them. My case was full of food and svarim. And when you get to Moscow, they weigh your case, and we were told, go to an old man, not to a young one. The young one wants promotion. So I went to the old one. I said, and I put my case with great difficulty on the runway. And I said, excuse me, sir, am I doing this correctly? He couldn't make head or tail of what I was saying, and it was off. I said, oh, thank you so much.
So he didn't actually weigh the case?
He didn't do anything.
So,
thank you so much.
So in fact you were a Cold War spy.
And when they asked me further on, what have you got in your case? I said, a lot of bricks. You know.
So they didn't open the case?
No. Thank
goodness. You were able to get all those for him in?
Yeah, and I was able to get a lot of cheese and things that I could take. But and I took a lot of children's clothes, a couple of Russian workers, and they are so grateful that they escaped. They said it's terrible there.
Rebecca mentioned something about that you managed to persuade Al to take suitcases of clothes.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us that story.
Well, the Russians were allowing the Jews to go to Israel. And I knew that they had nothing. They weren't allowed to take anything. So I put up notices in shuls and in shops, Golders Green, all the way around. Please send your good old clothes for the Russians. And a very sweet lady, I didn't know how to do it. A lady went to the market and got me very thin, strong bags. I phoned up LL and I said, look, we want you to help me do a chesed. We want to send clothes for Russian Jews in Israel. Would you please allow me to send bags of clothes. And I don't know if I ask people to take them, will you allow them through? They said they would allow 10 kilo for each one with a bag. And I got any number of people, please will you take a bag, please will you take a bag. Some cheated me and took their own bags. But in the main...
They went to Israel?
They went, and at El Al in London did not charge them. So, you know, some people took advantage of it, but never mind. But then I had loads and loads. I had appealed so much for this. I had loads, and I took a taxi. Who was it? I think it was Anne. Somebody came and helped me, and we put it all into boxes. I took a taxi. I said, we're going to cargo at El Al, please. And when we got to cargo at El Al, I was telling this driver that we're taking all these clothes for Russian Jews. And when I came to get the bill, I mean, I was prepared for whatever price he was going to charge. He just asked me £7. I said it was more than £7. He said, you're doing a chesed, so am I. Then I went into cargo, and they were going to allow me 1 ton of clothes free. So I was putting it on the scale and on the scale and on the scale. And he said, why did you stop? I said, well, it's a ton. He said, look, I'm doing the counting. I put 2 tons on and he let me through. So that, and it went to Haifa.
I was going to say, what happened to those clothes at the other end?
Well, at the other end, it went to a distribution place. And they always said the clothes I sent were the best. Although one grandson has gone to America to find his zivuk, whether he does or not, I don't know. But
almost everyone.
yes, this is
And Nemi's here now.
yes, yeah,
That's a wonderful thing. Before we leave you, I wanted to ask you for some of your wisdom.
have I got any?
I think I left my phone in the car. Because Rebecca said to me she once asked you, you know, having seen so much and learned so much, what is it that you have to give on to the next generation? First of all, in general, what advice do you have to young people trying to make their way in the world?
My mother of Shalom always told me, there's no such word as can't. You can or you don't want to. And that was my guiding light. I've got to do it. I can't say no. And that really guided me. And also, very important, is a sense of humour. It is very important not to take umbrage at anybody for anything. Walk away if you have got something seething inside you. And enjoy what you've got.
I've noticed like every third sentence is gratitude. Everything you say, you have in your life, you say, I'm grateful. And I get the feeling that's a huge part of you.
Of course. You have so much, we have so much to be grateful for. the positives. That was my mother's dictum. She had a very tough assignment on her, but she faced up to it and passed it on to me. I was very close with her, and I shipped it in like kosher food. It really was.
And Jewishly, I mean, considering that you built so much of your Yiddishkeit for yourself, and then handed it on to the next generation, and they handed it on to the next generation, or whatever.
Well, this is the Jewish way of bringing up your children.
So what's the secret? I mean, we're looking now to try and preserve Yiddishkeit into the next 100 years. So how do we do it? What's the secret?
The example. What you do, they will do too. Even if they object at the time, they come round to it.
So you're saying the personal example that you set?
Well, I'm not the only one. But I'm very grateful, I tell you this, because I've seen people who have been as firm as me, but they haven't managed with their children. And thank goodness my children all followed. That I know. I'm grateful that nobody went to America of my children, because I went to America and it doesn't teach you a lot, except to run away. Really, I was not impressed. So there ends my next lesson.
Okay, and before we sign off, Rebecca has requested, she said there's 2 special poems that you always say. She said one poem is called, that you learnt when you were young. One is called L'chaim.
L'chaim, my brethren.
Okay, wait, we're going to sing Shira ready. I'm going to count.
Oh no, you don't want that one.
Oh, we did. Rebecca will kill me if we don't
Oh, Khalila. Carry on.
Right, 3, 2, 1.
L'chaim, my brethren. L'chaim, I say, health, peace, and good fortune. I wish you today. Today we have ended the Torah once more. Today we begin it anew as of yore. Be thankful and glad, and the Lord extol, who gave us the law on its parchment scroll. The law has been our consolation, our help in exile and sore privation. Lost have we all, we were wont to prize, our holy temple a ruin lies. Laid waste is the land, where our songs we sung, forgotten. Our language, our mother tongue, of kingdom and priesthood, are we bereft. Our faith is our only treasure left. God in our hearts, the law in our hands. We have wandered sadly through many lands. We have suffered much, yet behold, we live through the law of our people alone can give 2,000 years. A little thing when spoken. 2,000 years tormented, crushed, and broken. 77 dark generations, filled up with anguish and lamentations. Their tale of sorrow did I unfold, but no Simchat Torah today we hold. And why should I tell it to you all again? In our bones it is branded with fire and with pain. We have given all, like Hannah, her children 7, for the sake of the Torah that came from heaven. And now what next? Will they let us be? Have the nations then come at last to see that we Jews are men like the rest, and no more? Need we wander homeless as heretofore, abused and slandered wherever we go? I cannot tell you, but this I know. In our hearts still lives the law that we love. Then weep not, and fear not, but hope in the Lord and the sacred Torah, his holy word. L'chaim, my brethren, l'chaim, I say, health, peace, and good fortune, I wish you today. Today we have ended the Torah once more. Today we begin it anew as of yore. Be thankful and glad, and the Lord extol, who gave us the law on its parchment scroll. I learned that when I was 9 years old, and I was put on a chair.
Oh my goodness! Oh my, oh my!
Why?
I think that's just one of the most fantastic poems I've ever heard.
It's a lovely one.
And your delivery of it. You were 9 years old when you learned it? Wow.
Oh, and it was before I was 9. But still, I mean, well, they're lovely poems. I learnt them as a child.
Oh, you moved me to tears with that one. Goodness me.
Pardon?
You moved me to tears with that one. It's just beautiful. And what was the other one she said? Oh, there's another poem about Jews.
Oh, they're all about Jews.
Drink.
What else?
So I think that's where we're going to end. Let's take a picture with you.
Come on, come on.
Oh, you're shy? Oh, okay.
Never, never.
I'm not shy, you know that, but no.
Oh, there's one. Tefillin. Erect he stands in fervent prayer, his body cloaked in silken talus. He seems a king, so free from care, his wife a queen, his home a palace. These bands he wears and softly prays, devoting strength and mind to God. His body slowly, gently sways. He walks the ground his fathers trod. This daily commune with the Master lifts him above mere common clay. The Jewish heart, like alabaster, grows pure and purer every day.
Wow. Absolutely fantastic.
Oh, they're lovely.
Should have been on the stage, Mrs. Aenglert.
Oh, yeah.
You're a wasted talent.
Israel, my people, God's gracious riddle, will thy solution ever be told? Fought, never conquered. Bent, never broken. Mortal, immortal, youthful, though old. Egypt enslaved thee, Babylon crushed thee, Rome led thee captive, homeless thy head. But where are those nations, mighty and fearsome? Thou hast survived them. They are long dead. Nations keep coming, nations keep going, passing like shadows wiped off the earth. Thou an eternal witness remainest, watching their burial, watching their birth. Pray, who revealed the heaven's great secret, death and destruction thus to defy, suffering, torture, stake, inquisition. Prithee, who taught thee never to die? And who gave thee faith, deep as the ocean, strong as the rock hills, fierce like the sun, hated and hunted wherever thou wanderest, bearing a message. God is but one. Pray, has thy saga likewise an ending as its beginning? Glorious of old, Israel, my people, God's greatest riddle, will thy solution ever be told? Oh!
It gives you goosebumps. It really does. Fantastic. So much.
Thank you. I'm showing off, you see.
Thank you, Shira.
Thank you.
That is really, you really gave us some jewels today. Really, really wonderful things. So,